Johnny Thompson's heart raced as he stared at the alien girl hiding in the cargo hold of the SS Helios. This wasn't part of his job description as a maintenance technician, and it certainly wasn't what he'd expected to find during a routine inspection. But here she was, a stowaway Adosian female with fear in her eyes and desperation in her posture. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "Don't turn me in." Johnny's mind reeled. He knew the risks of harboring a fugitive alien on board an interstellar freighter. Captain Marcus Stern was notorious for his strict adherence to regulations, and the legal consequences could be severe. Yet something in the alien's plea struck a chord within him. "What's your name?" he asked, crouching down to her level. "Wazin," she replied, her large almond-shaped eyes searching his face for any sign of hostility. "I'm Johnny. Why are you here?" Wazin's story tumbled out in broken English. She was fleeing political persecution on her homeworld, seeking refuge among the stars. As she spoke, Johnny made a decision that would alter the course of his life and potentially change the fate of humanity. Over the next few weeks, Johnny secretly provided Wazin with food, water, and basic necessities. During his off hours, he taught her about human culture and helped improve her language skills. With each clandestine meeting, he found himself drawn deeper into her world, fascinated by the differences and surprising similarities between their species. But their secret wasn't destined to remain hidden forever. Captain Stern's suspicions grew with each passing day, his keen eyes noting Johnny's frequent trips to the cargo hold. Security measures tightened across the ship, and Johnny felt the noose of discovery slowly closing around them. Unbeknownst to the crew of the SS Helios, an Adosian pursuit vessel, commanded by the relentless Commander Zarek, was closing in. They had detected Wazin's unique biosignature and were determined to recapture her at any cost. As the human outpost Starbase Alpha loomed on the horizon, Johnny learned the true gravity of his actions. Wazin possessed critical information about a planned Adosian invasion of human-controlled space. The fate of humanity now rested on his shoulders, forcing him to confront the broader implications of his choice to help her. Docked at Starbase Alpha for refueling and resupply, Johnny faced an impossible decision. He could risk everything to smuggle Wazin off the ship, potentially saving humanity from an impending invasion, or he could turn her in to the authorities, avoiding personal consequences, but potentially dooming both Wazin and humanity to a dark fate. As he grappled with this choice, Johnny realized his feelings for Wazin had grown beyond simple altruism. The alien girl who had entered his life by chance had become someone he cared for deeply. With time running out and the stakes higher than ever, Johnny made his choice. He would help Wazin escape from the SS Helios, consequences be damned. As they prepared to make their daring move, Johnny knew that his decision would test his loyalty, challenge his beliefs, and potentially change the course of human-alien relations forever. But looking into Wazin's eyes, he also knew that some things were worth risking everything for. The human who helped an alien girl escape was about to embark on the greatest adventure of his life, one that would shape the destiny of two species and might just lead to an unexpected love that transcended the stars. Johnny's heart pounded as he guided Wazin through the labyrinthine corridors of Starbase Alpha. His maintenance credentials granted them access to restricted areas, but every passing moment felt like walking on a razor's edge. They ducked into shadows and empty rooms, narrowly avoiding Captain Stern's searching gaze and the watchful eyes of security personnel. As they reached the bustling central hub of the starbase, Johnny pulled Wazin close, whispering, "Stay calm and act natural. We're almost there." Wazin nodded, her large almond eyes scanning the crowd. They melted into the throng of humans, aliens, and droids, their steps quickening as they approached the docking bays. Johnny spotted a familiar face in the crowd, Mark Chen, his old friend and freighter pilot. Mark's eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed as he noticed Wazin. "Johnny," Mark hissed as they drew near, "what have you gotten yourself into?" "I'll explain everything," Johnny promised, "but we need to leave. Now." Mark hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, but this better be good." They boarded Mark's freighter, the Stellar Winds, and within minutes they were hurtling through space towards the human colony world of New Terra. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Johnny recounted the events that had led them to this point. Mark listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. When Johnny finished, Mark turned to Weizhen. "Is this true? An invasion?" Weizhen nodded solemnly. "Yes, my people, the Adotians. Some of them believe conquest is the only way forward. Our resources dwindle, and Commander Zarak leads those who would take what they need by force." She reached into a hidden pocket in her clothing and produced a small data crystal. "I stole this. It contains the invasion plans. I couldn't stand by and let it happen." Johnny placed a comforting hand on Weizhen's shoulder. "You did the right thing." Mark frowned, running a hand through his graying hair. "This is bigger than I thought. We need to get this information to the proper authorities." A sudden alarm blared through the ship's speakers. Mark lunged for the control panel, his face paling as he read the display. "Adosian pursuit vessel detected. They're gaining on us fast." Johnny leaned over Mark's shoulder, studying the readouts. The Adosian ship was sleek, built for speed and combat. The Stellar Winds, a repurposed cargo freighter, stood little chance in a direct confrontation. "It's Zarak," Weizhen whispered, her voice trembling. "He's found us." As the Adosian ship closed in, Johnny's mind raced. He looked at the navigational charts, then at the looming form of New Terra growing larger in the view screen. An idea struck him. "Mark, can we use the planet's atmosphere to lose them?" Johnny asked. Mark's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? That kind of atmospheric entry is incredibly risky." "Do we have a choice?" Johnny countered. After a moment's hesitation, Mark nodded grimly. "Strap in, this is going to get rough." The stellar winds plunged into New Terra's atmosphere, the ship's hull groaning under the strain. Alarms blared as the temperature rose, warning of imminent system failures. Mark's hands flew over the controls, his face a mask of concentration as he guided them through the turbulence. Behind them, the Adosian ship followed, its superior technology allowing it to navigate the descent with greater ease. But Mark's skill and familiarity with his ship gave them an edge. He weaved through cloud banks and air currents, slowly putting distance between them and their pursuers. Suddenly, a violent shudder ran through the ship. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "We've sustained damage," Mark shouted over the din. "I'm losing control." The stellar winds careened through the sky, spinning as it plummeted towards the ground. Johnny held on to Weizhen tightly, bracing for impact. With a bone-jarring crash, the ship slammed into the surface of New Terra. For a moment, all was silent. Then slowly, Johnny opened his eyes. The cabin was filled with smoke, but he could make out Mark's slumped form in the pilot's seat. "Mark!" he called out, coughing. Mark groaned, lifting his head. "I'm alive. You?" "We're okay," Johnny responded, helping Weizhen to her feet. "But we need to move. Zarak won't be far behind." They stumbled out of the wreckage, salvaging what supplies they could. The landscape around them was alien and forbidding, a vast expanse of rocky terrain dotted with strange, twisting vegetation. In the distance, snow-capped mountains loomed beneath twin moons. Mark consulted a battered data pad. "The nearest settlement is about 100 miles north. We'd better start walking." As they set off across the harsh terrain of New Terra, Johnny couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from finished. The real test of survival, and of his growing feelings for Weizhen, was just beginning. As the sun rose over the alien landscape of New Terra, Johnny, Weizhen, and Mark approached the outskirts of the human settlement. The distant skyline of prefab buildings and makeshift structures loomed before them, a stark contrast to the wild terrain they had traversed. "We need to be careful," Mark whispered, his eyes darting around nervously. "This place will be crawling with both human and Adosian patrols." Johnny nodded, feeling the weight of their situation. He turned to Weizhen, noting the exhaustion etched on her features. "Stay close," he murmured, gently squeezing her hand. They made their way through the settlement's outer districts, ducking behind market stalls and weaving through crowds of colonists and alien visitors. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices and the buzz of a dozen different languages. As they passed a communications kiosk, Johnny's eyes lit up. "Wait here," he instructed his companions before slipping away. Minutes later, he returned, a satisfied grin on his face. "I've tapped into the local network," he explained, showing them a small device he'd rigged. "We can monitor security chatter and get a better idea of what we're up against." Through the device, they learned of Colonel Sarah Hayes and her security team's efforts to locate them. More worryingly, they discovered that Commander Zarek's forces had established hidden observation posts throughout the settlement. "We need help," Mark said, his voice tinged with desperation. "Someone who knows this place, someone we can trust." Johnny's brow furrowed in thought. Suddenly his eyes widened. "Dr. Elias Reeves," he breathed. "He's an old acquaintance, works at the research center here. If anyone can help us, it's him." Using his hacked connection, Johnny managed to send a coded message to Dr. Reeves. The response came swiftly, a set of coordinates and a time. As they made their way through the bustling streets towards the research center, Johnny found himself hyper-aware of Weezen's presence beside him. In the crowd, her alien features were less conspicuous, but to him, she stood out like a beacon. He noticed the grace in her movements, the quiet strength in her eyes. Without thinking, he placed a protective hand on her lower back as they navigated a particularly dense throng of people. Weezen looked up at him, surprise and something else flickering in her large almond-shaped eyes. A silent understanding passed between them, deepening the connection that had been growing since their first encounter in the cargo hold of the SS Helios. Dr. Elias Reeves met them at a side entrance to the new Terra Research Center, his weathered face creased with concern. "Quickly," he urged, ushering them inside. "My lab is secure, but we can't take any chances." Once safely inside the lab, Dr. Reeves turned to them, his gaze lingering on Weezen. "I never thought I'd see an Idosian up close," he mused. "Fascinating." "Dr. Reeves," Johnny interjected, "we need your help. Weezen has critical information about an Idosian invasion plan." The xenobiologist's eyebrows shot up. "An invasion? Are you certain?" Weezen produced the data crystal from her hidden pocket. "It's all here," she said, her voice soft but firm. Dr. Reeves took the crystal with reverence, quickly inserting it into a secure terminal. As the data scrolled across the screen, his face paled. "This is unprecedented. The scale of this planned invasion, it could mean the end of human-controlled space as we know it." A piercing alarm shattered the moment of revelation. Red warning lights began to flash throughout the lab. "What's happening?" Mark demanded, already moving towards the door. Dr. Reeves's fingers flew across his keyboard. "Idosian forces have breached the settlement's outer defenses," he reported, his voice tense. "They're heading this way." Johnny's mind raced. They must be tracking Weezen somehow. "Dr. Reeves, is there another way out of here?" The scientist nodded. "There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the outskirts of the settlement. It's not on any official plans." "Good," Johnny said, making a quick decision. "Weezen, you need to go. Now. Mark, go with her." Weezen's eyes widened in alarm. "What about you?" "I'll stay and wipe any trace of you from the systems," Johnny explained, already moving towards the main computer terminal. "We can't risk them finding any data about you or the invasion plans." Dr. Reeves guided Mark and Weezen to a hidden panel in the wall. As it slid open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond, Weezen turned back to Johnny. Their eyes met, 1,000 unspoken words passing between them in that brief moment. "Be careful," she whispered. Johnny nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I'll find you, I promise." As the panel closed behind them, Johnny turned to Dr. Reeves. "We need to create a diversion. Any ideas?" The older man grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. "I may have a few tricks up my sleeve." They worked quickly, Johnny's fingers flying over the keyboard as he systematically erased all traces of Weezen and the invasion plans from the lab systems. Dr. Reeves, meanwhile, prepared a series of harmless but impressive-looking chemical reactions. The sound of booted feet echoed in the corridor outside. Johnny's heart raced as he deleted the final files, then nodded to Dr. Reeves. The scientist activated his makeshift pyrotechnics just as the lab door burst open. Commander Zarek stormed in, flanked by a squad of heavily armed Adosian soldiers. Through the smoke and flashing lights of Dr. Reeves's diversion, Johnny slipped out through a side door, his heart pounding in his ears. He reunited with Weizhen and Mark at the mouth of the maintenance tunnel, all three of them breathing heavily. "We can't stay together," Mark said, his expression grim. "We'll be too easy to track. I'll head east, try to draw some of them away. You two get to the spaceport. It's our best chance of getting off this rock." Before Johnny could protest, Mark was gone, disappearing into the chaotic streets of the settlement. Johnny turned to Weizhen, seeing his own mix of fear and perseverance mirrored in her eyes. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, reaching out to take his hand. Together they plunged into the fray, their destination clear, but the path ahead fraught with danger. As they navigated the crowded streets, the sounds of conflict grew louder. Edosian soldiers appeared at the end of an alley, cornering a group of human civilians. Without hesitation, Johnny pulled Weizhen into a nearby maintenance alcove. "Stay here," he whispered, his eyes scanning the area. He spotted a control panel for the street's power grid and grinned. "I have an idea." With practiced ease, Johnny pried open the panel and began rerouting circuits. Sparks flew as nearby light fixtures exploded in a shower of glass and electricity. The Adosian soldiers, momentarily blinded and disoriented, lost their grip on the civilians, who quickly fled. As Johnny and Weizhen emerged from their hiding spot, ready to continue their dash to the spaceport, a stern voice called out behind them. "Freeze! Security forces!" They turned to see Colonel Sarah Hayes, her uniform crisp despite the chaos around them, flanked by a team of armed officers. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she recognized Johnny. "Technician Thompson," she said, her voice cold. "You have a lot of explaining to do." Johnny's mind raced, weighing his options. In that moment, looking from the determined face of Colonel Hayes to Weizhen's worried expression, he made his choice. "Colonel," he said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart, "what I'm about to tell you will sound insane, but I swear on my life it's the truth, and the fate of every human in this system depends on you believing me." As Johnny recounted their harrowing journey and revealed the truth about the Adosian invasion plans, Colonel Hayes's expression shifted from skepticism to grave concern. Her decision to help them was cemented when the sky lit up with the fire of orbital bombardment. Commander Zarek's flagship had entered the fray. "Follow me," Colonel Hayes ordered, her tone brooking no argument. "We're getting you on the fastest ship we have." As they raced through the settlement, now in full defensive mode, Johnny couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and trepidation. They had found an ally, but the real challenge still lay ahead. The small scout ship that would carry them to warn the human government seemed impossibly fragile compared to the massive Adosian warships now filling the sky. As they prepared for takeoff, Johnny looked at Weizhen, her alien features now as familiar and dear to him as his own reflection. Whatever came next, he knew that his fate was inexorably tied to hers. Together they would race against time to save not just one world, but two civilizations from the brink of a devastating war. The ship's engines roared to life as New Terra burned behind them, the battle for the colony world raging in their wake. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the monumental task of convincing the human military of the threat that loomed over them all. But in that moment, as the stars streaked past the view screen and Weizhen's hand found his, Johnny felt a spark of hope. They had made it this far against impossible odds. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could see this through to the end. The scout ship's engines thrummed as it accelerated away from New Terra, leaving behind the chaos of the battle. Johnny's fingers danced across the control panel, plotting a course for the nearest human outpost. Beside him, Weizhen monitored the long-range scanners, her large eyes reflecting the starfield ahead. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console as a massive surge of energy engulfed them. "Ion storm," Johnny shouted, gripping the controls tightly. "It wasn't on any of our charts." The vessel bucked and twisted as currents of charged particles battered its hull. Sparks erupted from consoles, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. Johnny fought to maintain control, but the ship spun wildly, tumbling end over end. "Navigation's gone," Weizhen called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. Communications are down too. Johnny gritted his teeth, using every ounce of his piloting skill to stabilize their trajectory. The storm raged around them, brilliant flashes of energy illuminating the cockpit. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, they emerged from the maelstrom, their ship battered but intact. As the turbulence subsided, Johnny took stock of their situation. "We're off course," he muttered, scanning the unfamiliar star patterns. "Way off course." Wiesen nodded grimly. "Fuel reserves are critically low. We need to find a place to set down and make repairs." Johnny was about to respond when a ping from the long-range scanner caught his attention. His eyes widened as he saw the readout. "Wiesen, look at this. There's something massive out there." As they drew closer, the object came into view. A colossal space station, its design unlike anything either of them had ever seen. Its sleek, organic curves spoke of an advanced civilization, far beyond human or Adoshan capabilities. "It looks abandoned," Wiesen observed, her voice tinged with awe. Johnny nodded, making a quick decision. "We don't have much choice. We're going in." Using his technical expertise, Johnny interfaced with the station's ancient systems. After several tense minutes of code-breaking and improvisation, he managed to override the docking protocols. Their small scout ship glided into a cavernous hangar bay, settling gently onto the deck as artificial gravity took hold. As they exited their ship, the station seemed to come alive around them. Lights flickered on, and a low hum filled the air as life support systems activated. "At least we can breathe," Johnny quipped, his hand instinctively moving to the small of Wiesen's back as they stepped into the unknown. They made their way through winding corridors, marveling at the alien architecture. Strange symbols adorned the walls, and unfamiliar technology was integrated into every surface. Eventually, they found themselves in what appeared to be a central control room. Johnny's eyes lit up at the sight of the advanced consoles. "If I can interface with these systems, we might be able to repair our ship and send a distress signal." While Johnny set to work deciphering the alien technology, Wiesen explored further. Her keen senses picked up subtle details, wear patterns on the floor, the arrangement of equipment, that told a story. "Johnny," she called out, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I think this was a military installation, possibly a command center for an entire empire." Johnny looked up from his work, a frown creasing his brow. That could be a problem. Who knows what kinds of weapons or defenses might still be active? As if in answer to his question, a low rumble reverberated through the station. Panels slid open in the walls and ceiling, revealing sleek metallic drones that hummed to life. "Security system!" Johnny shouted, grabbing Wiesen's hand and pulling her behind a console, just as a beam of energy sizzled past them. They ducked and weaved through the control room, narrowly avoiding the drone's attacks. Johnny's technical skills came into play as he used the alien consoles to create distractions and temporary barriers. As they evaded the drones, Johnny and Wiesen found themselves working in perfect sync. A look, a gesture, a single word was all it took to coordinate their movements. Despite the danger, Johnny couldn't help but feel a thrill at how naturally they complemented each other. Their frantic dance led them to a secluded alcove housing a massive data core. Johnny's eyes widened as he scanned the readouts. "Wiesen, this database, it contains scientific and technological information beyond anything we've ever seen. This could give humanity the edge we need in the coming conflict." But their discovery came at a cost. As Johnny accessed the database, a countdown appeared on every screen in the control room. The station's self-destruct sequence had been activated. "We need to get out of here," Wiesen urged, her eyes darting between Johnny and the approaching drones. Johnny nodded, his fingers flying over the alien interface. "I'm downloading as much as I can to our ship's computer. We can't let this knowledge be lost." With the clock ticking down, they raced back to the hangar bay, dodging security drones and navigating corridors that were already beginning to break apart. Johnny split his focus between guiding them to safety and remotely interfacing with their ship's systems, preparing it for a rapid departure. They burst into the hangar just as the first major explosions rocked the station. Johnny leapt into the pilot's seat, his hands a blur over the controls as he initiated the launch sequence. Wiesen strapped herself in beside him, calling out sensor readings as debris rained down around them. The scout ship shot out of the disintegrating hangar, weaving through chunks of metal and energy discharges. Behind them, the ancient station imploded in a spectacular light show, the shockwave catching their ship and sending it tumbling through space. For heart-stopping moments, Johnny fought to regain control, the ship groaning and creaking around them. Finally, they stabilized, the stars no longer pinwheeling across the view screen. As the adrenaline began to fade, Johnny turned to Weezin, a tired smile on his face. "Well, that was—" His words trailed off as he saw the look of alarm in her eyes. Following her gaze, he felt his stomach drop. The long-range sensors were picking up multiple contacts, and a Dosian patrol fleet headed straight for them. "It's Zarek," Weezin whispered, recognizing the signature of the flagship leading the formation. Johnny's mind raced, assessing their options. Their ship was damaged, weapons offline, and they were deep in a Dosian space. The situation seemed hopeless, but he refused to give up. "The alien data," he said suddenly, a plan forming. "If I can integrate some of that technology into our systems, we might have a chance." As Johnny set to work, his hands moving with practiced efficiency despite his exhaustion, Weezin took control of the ship's remaining functions. Using her intimate knowledge of Edosian tactics, she plotted a course through a nearby asteroid field, hoping to buy them some time. The Edosian fleet grew larger on their sensors, weapons already charging. Johnny and Weezin exchanged a look, volumes spoken in that single glance. Whatever came next, they would face it together. With a deep breath, Johnny activated the newly modified systems. The ship hummed with unfamiliar energy as the alien technology integrated with their own. Ahead of them, the asteroid field loomed, a treacherous maze that offered both peril and possibility. As the first Edosian shots streaked past their hull, Johnny and Weezin steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. Their mission, their lives, and perhaps the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as they plunged into the asteroids, the enemy close behind. Johnny's hands flew across the controls as he guided their small scout ship through the asteroid field. Massive chunks of rock hurtled past, scraping the hull with deafening screeches. Wezin's eyes darted between the sensor readouts and the viewport, calling out warnings as the Edosian fleet closed in behind them. "We can't outrun them like this," Weizin said, her voice tight with tension. "Their ships are too fast, too well armed." Johnny nodded grimly, his mind racing. Then his eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "The alien tech we downloaded. Maybe we can use it." Without waiting for a response, he began interfacing the ship's systems with the alien database. Lines of code flashed across his screen as he worked, sweat beading on his forehead. Suddenly, the ship shuddered and hummed with new energy. "What's happening?" Weezin asked, gripping her seat as the vessel accelerated. Johnny grinned, feeling the raw power thrumming through the ship. "We just got an upgrade." The scout ship shot forward with impossible speed, weaving through the asteroids with preternatural agility. Behind them, the Edosian fleet struggled to keep pace, their larger vessels less suited to the treacherous terrain. Commander Zarek's voice crackled over the comms, filled with rage and disbelief. "How are they doing this? Intensify our attack. Don't let them escape." A barrage of energy weapons lit up space around them. Johnny's enhanced reflexes, amplified by the alien tech, allowed him to dodge most of the shots. Those that did connect dissipated harmlessly against their hull. "They've got some kind of shield," an Edosian officer reported, panic evident in his voice. Zarek snarled, "Impossible! Charge the main cannon. We'll obliterate them in one shot." As the massive weapon on Zarek's flagship began to glow with building energy, Johnny's eyes widened in alarm. He frantically scanned the new systems at his disposal, looking for anything that might save them. "There!" he shouted, slamming his hand down on a newly appeared control interface. A shimmering energy field enveloped their ship just as Zarek's cannon fired. The blast struck them head-on, momentarily blinding them with its intensity. For a heart-stopping moment, Johnny thought they were done for. But as the light faded, he realized they were still intact. "We're alive," Weezin breathed, her large eyes wide with amazement. Johnny nodded, equally stunned. "And now it's our turn." He pushed their ship into a steep dive, plunging directly into the heart of the Adoshan Formation. Wazin called out enemy positions, allowing Johnny to thread their vessel through a maze of hostile ships. Confusion reigned among the Adoshan fleet as the small scout ship danced between their weapons fire, disrupting their carefully coordinated attack patterns. As they broke through the enemy lines, Johnny noticed a new option on his control panel. Cloaking device? Let's give it a shot. With a touch of a button, their ship vanished from both visual and sensor detection. The Adoshan fleet's weapons fire became erratic as they lost track of their target. We did it, Wazin said, allowing herself a small smile of relief. We should head for the nearest human outpost. Fortress Station Omega isn't far. Johnny nodded, setting a course. But as they accelerated away from the battlefield, warning lights began flashing across the console. The ship shuddered ominously, and a worrying whine emanated from the engine compartment. The power core's destabilizing, Johnny reported, his fingers dancing across the controls as he tried to compensate. The alien tech is putting too much strain on our systems. We need to land and make repairs. Wazin scanned their surroundings, her keen eyes picking out a small, unremarkable planet nearby. There, it's uninhabited within our range. As they began their descent, faint energy readings appeared on their sensors. Johnny frowned, adjusting the scan parameters. Those readings, they're similar to the space station we found. They landed near a cluster of ancient, weather-worn structures, half buried in the planet's red soil. Johnny and Wazin exited their ship, environment suits protecting them from the thin, cold atmosphere. They approached the ruins cautiously, Wazin's sensitive fingers tracing the familiar patterns etched into the stone. This is definitely from the same civilization, she said, her voice filled with wonder. Johnny nodded, his technical mind already racing with possibilities. If we can find compatible tech down there, we might be able to stabilize our ship. They found an entrance leading underground, activating their suit lights as they descended into darkness. The passage opened into a vast chamber filled with dormant machinery and holographic interfaces. As they moved further in, lights flickered to life around them, and a low hum filled the air. It's powering up, Johnny murmured, approaching a central console. He interfaced with the alien system, marveling at its complexity. This place, it's not just an outpost. It's some kind of research and development center. As Johnny worked to access the facility's database, Wazin explored the surrounding area. She gasped as she stumbled upon a weapons testing range, filled with prototypes of devastatingly powerful energy weapons. Johnny, she called out, her voice trembling slightly. I think we may have found something far more significant than we realized. Before Johnny could respond, a holographic projection sprang to life in the center of the chamber. It depicted scenes of a highly advanced civilization, followed by images of destruction and war. The final image showed a massive artificial construct turning against its creators. They were destroyed by their own AI, Johnny said, his voice hushed with the weight of the revelation. All this technology, it led to their downfall. Wazin moved closer to him, her alien features set in a grave expression. We have to be careful, Johnny. This knowledge, these weapons, they could be just as dangerous to our people as they were to the precursors. Their discussion was cut short by a loud clang that echoed through the facility. Massive doors slid shut, sealing them inside as security protocols activated. We're trapped, Wazin exclaimed, her large eyes darting around for an escape route. Johnny turned back to the console, his fingers flying as he attempted to override the security systems. I'm working on it, but we've got another problem. He pointed to a sensor readout showing multiple ships entering the planet's atmosphere. Wazin's face paled as she recognized the signatures. Idosians, she whispered. And humans? They've both found us. Johnny nodded grimly, redoubling his efforts to break through the facility's defenses. We need to get out of here, fast. If either side gets their hands on this technology... He left the thought unfinished, but Wazin understood. The fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance, and they were caught in the middle. As the sounds of distant explosions reached them from the surface, Johnny and Wazin shared a look of persistence. They had to find a way out, protect this dangerous knowledge, and somehow convince both sides of the threat it posed. The challenge seemed impossible, but they had beaten the odds before. With renewed focus, Johnny turned back to the alien console, while Weezin began searching for alternative exits. The race against time had begun, and the future of humanity and Adosians alike depended on their success. Success. Johnny's fingers flew across the alien console, his mind racing as he processed the gravity of their situation. Weizin stood beside him, her large eyes scanning the chamber for any sign of immediate danger. "I've got it!" Johnny exclaimed, a mix of relief and urgency in his voice. "The security protocols are down. We have access to the facility's defense systems." As if on cue, the ground shook beneath their feet. The distant sound of explosions filtered through the thick stone walls. "The battle has begun," Weizin said, her voice tight with concern. "We must act quickly." Johnny nodded, his hands already moving to activate the facility's planetary shield. A low hum reverberated through the chamber as the massive energy barrier sprang to life, enveloping the entire planet. "That should buy us some time," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But we need a plan to stop this conflict before it escalates further." Weezin's antenna twitched as she considered their options. "The precursor technology, perhaps we can use it to send a message to both fleets, warn them of the danger this place represents." Johnny's eyes lit up. "Brilliant! I can modify the communication array to broadcast on all frequencies, but we'll need a message that both sides will take seriously." As Johnny set to work on the facility's systems, Weizin began crafting their warning, drawing on her intimate knowledge of Adosian military protocols. The chamber hummed with activity, holographic displays flickering to life around them as Johnny interfaced with the ancient technology. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility. Johnny's head snapped up, his eyes widening as he read the sensor data. "We've got company," he said grimly. "Several dropships made it through before the shield went up. Both human and Adosian forces are converging on our position." Weezin's hand went to the weapon at her hip. "We cannot fight them all." Johnny's gaze darted around the room, taking in the array of dormant machinery. An idea formed in his mind. "Maybe we don't have to," he said, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. With a few quick commands, he activated the facility's automated defense systems. Outside, the barren landscape came alive. Hidden hangars opened, disgorging swarms of sleek, deadly drones. The advanced machines engaged the approaching troops, their precursor weapons cutting through both human and Adosian defenses with terrifying efficiency. Through the facility's sensors, Johnny and Weizin watched as the ground forces were forced to fall back, regrouping to reassess their strategy. The unexpected resistance had bought them precious time. "That should hold them for now," Johnny said, turning back to the communication array. "Let's make this count." As they worked feverishly to complete their modifications and broadcast their warning, the battle raged above. The human and Adosian fleets clashed in the planet's orbit, energy weapons and missiles crisscrossing the void between them. Finally, Johnny stepped back from the console, nodding to Weizin. "It's ready. Send the message." Weizin took a deep breath, then activated the broadcast. Her voice, clear and resolute, echoed through the chamber as it was transmitted to the warring fleets above. "Attention all forces. This is a priority alert. The technology contained within this facility poses a grave threat to both humans and Adosians. We have uncovered evidence of an ancient artificial intelligence that destroyed its creators. Cease hostilities immediately and withdraw to a safe distance. We are transmitting data to verify our claims." As the message went out, along with the packet of evidence they had compiled, Johnny and Weizin held their breath. For several tense moments, there was no response. Then gradually, the sounds of battle above began to diminish. "It's working," Weizin said, her voice filled with cautious hope. "They're standing down." Johnny allowed himself a small smile of relief, but it was short-lived. A new alert flashed across the console, causing his stomach to drop. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice tight. "Commander Zarak and a team of Adosian commandos have breached the lower levels. They must have found another way in." Weezin's expression hardened. "We cannot let them acquire this technology. The consequences would be catastrophic." Johnny nodded grimly. Agreed. We need to get back to our ship and get out of here. But first, we should gather as much data as we can about the precursor tech and the AI threat. We'll need proof to present to our governments. As they worked quickly to download critical information to their ship's computer, Johnny's mind raced, formulating a plan. They would need to navigate the sprawling underground complex, evade Zarek's team, and make it back to their ship, all while potentially hostile forces waited above ground. "Ready?" Johnny asked, securing the last of the data. Weezin nodded, her large eyes reflecting a mix of purpose and apprehension. "Lead the way." They moved swiftly through the winding corridors of the facility, using Johnny's newfound access to the systems to stay one step ahead of Zarek's team. Holographic projections and energy fields sprang to life at Johnny's command, creating false paths and dead ends to confuse their pursuers. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with gleaming, high-tech armor and weapons. Johnny's eyes widened as he realized what they had stumbled upon. "A precursor armory," he breathed, his mind already racing with possibilities. "This could give us the edge we need." Without hesitation, they donned the advanced exosuits, marveling at the instant boost in strength and agility they provided. The suits' interfaces came to life, feeding them tactical information and enhancing their senses. Newly empowered, they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the cavernous halls of the ancient facility. But as they approached the main hall that would lead them to the surface, they heard the telltale sounds of an approaching force. Johnny and Weezin shared a look, their expressions grim but resolute. They had come too far to turn back now. With a nod of silent understanding, they readied themselves for the confrontation that lay ahead, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. With a shared nod of dedication, Johnny and Weezin charged forward, their precursor armor humming with power. As they entered the main hall, they found themselves face to face with Commander Zarek and his team of Edosian commandos. The two groups froze, weapons raised, each side assessing the other. "Stand down, Zarek," Weezin called out, her voice amplified by her suit systems. "You don't understand the danger we're all in." Zarek's eyes narrowed, taking in their advanced armor. "Traitor," he spat. "You would side with the humans and steal our rightful technology?" "This isn't about sides anymore," Johnny interjected, stepping forward. "We've uncovered evidence of a threat that could destroy both our civilizations. We need to work together." Before Zarek could respond, the facility shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the computer announced, "Warning, self-destruct sequence initiated, 5 minutes to detonation." "What have you done?" Zarek demanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "It wasn't us," Johnny replied, his mind racing. "The facility must have detected the breach and activated a failsafe." Weezin grabbed Johnny's arm. "We need to get out of here, all of us." For a moment, Zarek hesitated, his loyalty to his mission warring with self-preservation. Finally, he lowered his weapon. "Lead the way." Together, the unlikely group raced through the crumbling facility. Johnny used his connection to the precursor systems to clear their path, opening sealed doors and creating shortcuts. They reached the surface just as the ground began to shake beneath their feet. "Our ship!" Weezin exclaimed, pointing to where their vessel sat, partially buried by debris from the ongoing battle above. Without hesitation, Zarek spoke up. "We'll take mine. It's more heavily armed and can break through the planetary shield." They sprinted toward the Edosian ship, dodging falling debris and stray weapons fire from the conflict overhead. As they boarded, Johnny interfaced with the ship's systems, utilizing his newfound knowledge of precursor tech to enhance its capabilities. The ship lurched into the air just as the ground where they had been standing collapsed. Zarek took the controls, his expert piloting, guiding them through the chaos of the battle above. Johnny worked furiously at a console, using the ship's enhanced systems to broadcast a message to both fleets. "All ships, cease fire and clear the area immediately. This entire region is about to be destroyed." As if to emphasize his point, a massive explosion rocked the planet below. The precursor facility had detonated, sending a shockwave that began to tear the planet apart. Zarek pushed the ship to its limits, weaving through debris and weapons fire. They broke through the planetary shield just as it began to collapse, the energy barrier shattering like glass around them. As they cleared the explosion, they found themselves in the midst of a tense standoff between the human and Adosian fleets. Ships from both sides had ceased fire, their attention now focused on the destruction unfolding behind Zarek's vessel. Johnny activated the ship's advanced communication array. "This is Johnny Chen, requesting an immediate ceasefire and emergency meeting aboard the human flagship. We have critical information that affects both our species." There was a moment of tense silence before a response came through. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the U.S. Intrepid. Your request is granted. Transmit your approach vector." As Zarek guided their ship toward the imposing human flagship, Johnny prepared a data package containing evidence of the precursor AI threat. He sent it ahead, hoping it would convince both sides of the gravity of the situation. They docked with the U.S. Intrepid, the three of them disembarking into a heavily guarded hangar bay. Despite the suspicious glances from both human and Adosian personnel, they were escorted to a high-security conference room. Inside, they found themselves facing a mixed audience of human and Adosian military leaders. Admiral Helena Chen, a stern-faced woman with graying hair, sat at the head of the table. Beside her was Adosian High Commander Krell, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. "You have 5 minutes to explain why we shouldn't blow each other out of the sky," Admiral Chen said, her voice cold. Johnny stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "What we found on that planet changes everything," he began. He launched into an explanation of the precursor civilization, their advanced AI, and the catastrophic consequences of their technological hubris. As he spoke, the room grew silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Even the most hardened military leaders looked shaken by the time Johnny finished. Weezin took over, her voice steady as she revealed the truth about the Adosian government's deception and the real reasons behind their planned invasion. The revelation caused an uproar among the Adosian leaders present. "Lies!" shouted one Adosian general, rising from his seat. "This human-loving traitor speaks only falsehoods." But others, including Commander Zarek, spoke up in support of Weezin's claims. The room descended into heated arguments, with both humans and Adosians taking sides. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared to life. Admiral Chen rushed to a nearby console, her face paling as she read the incoming data. "Multiple unknown vessels have just entered the system," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "They're using technology similar to what you described from the precursor facility." The room fell silent as a transmission came through. A deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. "Attention, human and Adosian fleets. We are the Guardians, tasked with containing the spread of dangerous precursor technology. You will surrender all derived technology and submit to memory alteration or face complete annihilation. You have 1 standard hour to comply." The leaders in the room looked at each other, the weight of this new threat pressing down on them. Admiral Chen turned to Johnny, Weezin, and Zarek, her expression grim. "It seems we have a common enemy now," she said, "and you three are our best hope for negotiation. Are you prepared to represent both our species in this encounter?" Johnny looked at Weezin, then at Zarek. Despite their differences, they had formed an unlikely alliance in the face of overwhelming odds. He nodded, feeling the weight of 2 civilizations on his shoulders. "We're ready," he said, his voice firm. As preparations for their diplomatic mission began, Johnny and Weezin found a moment alone in a quiet corridor. The stress of recent events and the looming threat brought their feelings for each other to the surface. "Weezin, Johnny began, struggling to find the right words. She placed a hand on his cheek, her large eyes filled with emotion. "I know," she said softly. They came together in a passionate embrace, their kiss bridging the gap between their species. It was a moment of connection amidst the chaos, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The moment was broken by Zarek's arrival. If he noticed their intimate pose, he gave no indication. "It's time," he said simply. Together they boarded the shuttle that would take them to meet the Guardians. As they approached the massive vessel, Johnny felt Weezin's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently, drawing strength from her presence. The shuttle docked with the Guardian ship, its vast interior unlike anything they had ever seen. As the airlock cycled open, Johnny took a deep breath, steeling himself for the negotiation that would determine the fate of both their species. They stepped forward into the unknown, united in purpose despite their differences. The future of humanity and Adosians alike hung in the balance of this crucial encounter. As they stepped into the Guardian vessel, Johnny felt a wave of awe wash over him. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. Vast chambers with walls that seemed to shimmer and shift, defying the laws of physics as he understood them. Zora, the Guardian emissary, towered over them. Its form was ethereal, almost translucent, with tendrils of energy flowing through what could be loosely described as a body. When it spoke, the words seemed to resonate directly in their minds. "Welcome, representatives of humanity and Eidos," Zora's voice echoed. "Follow me." They were led to a circular chamber filled with holographic displays that pulsed and swirled with information. Johnny found himself transfixed by the sheer amount of data flowing around them. Zora turned to face them, its form rippling. "We are the Guardians, tasked with preventing the spread of dangerous precursor technology across the galaxy. Your recent actions have drawn our attention." Johnny stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We understand the risks, but we believe our unique experience gives us valuable insight. We've seen firsthand the dangers of unchecked AI advancement." Weezin joined him, her large eyes focused on Zora. "Our species were on the brink of war, but this shared threat has united us. We propose a compromise." Together they laid out their plan: limited access to precursor technology under strict regulation and oversight from both human and Adosian governments, with Guardian supervision. Zarak, to Johnny's surprise, added his voice to theirs. "We've learned the value of cooperation. Our combined knowledge could be a powerful force for good in the galaxy." Zora remained silent for a long moment, its form pulsing with energy. Finally, it spoke. "Your unity is unexpected. I must consult with the others." As Zora disappeared into a swirl of light, Johnny felt Weezin's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently, drawing strength from her presence. "Whatever happens," Weezin whispered, "we're in this together." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Johnny found himself studying the holographic displays, trying to decipher their alien logic. Zarek paced restlessly, his mandibles clicking softly. Finally, Zora reappeared. "We have considered your proposal," it announced. "We offer a counter-proposal. You may retain limited access to precursor technology, but only if you can prove your species capable of peaceful coexistence." The Guardian outlined their challenge. Within one standard galactic year, humans and Adosians must establish a joint colony on a neutral planet, demonstrating their ability to work together. Johnny exchanged glances with Weezin and Zarek. The task seemed daunting, but the alternative, losing all access to precursor technology, was unthinkable. "We accept your terms," Johnny said firmly. Back aboard the UES Intrepid, they presented the Guardian's proposal to Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell. The debate was intense, with voices raised on both sides. "This is our only chance," Johnny argued. "We've seen what precursor technology can do. Imagine what we could achieve if we use it responsibly, together." After hours of discussion, both leaders reluctantly agreed. Plans for the joint colony began immediately, with teams from both species working side by side. Just as hope for a peaceful future began to grow, alarms blared throughout the ship. Admiral Chen's face was grim as she delivered the news. A radical faction of Adosians, led by Zarek's former second-in-command, Varrock, had stolen an experimental warship equipped with reverse-engineered precursor tech. "They're rejecting the peace agreement," Zarek growled, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "If they succeed, everything we've worked for will be lost." Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell shared a look of understanding. "We're assigning you three to lead a joint task force," Chen announced. "Track down Varrock and neutralize this threat before it destroys our chance at peace." Their ship was quickly upgraded with carefully regulated precursor technology under Guardian supervision. As they prepared for departure, Johnny found a quiet moment with Weezin in the ship's observation deck. "I never imagined I'd be here," he said softly, gazing out at the stars. Fighting alongside Adotians, carrying the fate of both our species. Weazen's hand found his. We've come so far, she replied. Whatever challenges lie ahead, we'll face them together. Their moment was interrupted by Zarek's arrival. If he noticed their joined hands, he gave no sign. We're ready for departure, he announced. As they boarded their ship, Johnny couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. They were venturing into uncharted space, pursuing a dangerous enemy. But as he looked at Wezen and Zarek, he felt a surge of tenacity. They had overcome their differences before. Together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The ship's engines hummed to life, and they set course for the outer reaches of known space. As they left the familiar behind, Johnny knew that the real test of their newfound alliance was just beginning. The fate of two civilizations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. The ship's engines thrummed as they entered the outer reaches of known space. Johnny's fingers flew across the control panel, adjusting their course to intercept Varrock's stolen warship. Beside him, Wezen monitored long-range sensors, her large eyes reflecting the flickering data streams. I've got something, she announced, her voice tense. A faint energy signature matching precursor tech. It's coming from a small moon orbiting a gas giant in the Zeta Reticuli system. Zarek leaned over her shoulder, mandibles clicking softly as he studied the readout. That's it. Varrock always favored hidden bases in remote locations. He'll have defenses set up, no doubt. Johnny nodded, setting a course for the moon. As they approached, the ship's sensors detected a network of energy barriers and weapons emplacements surrounding a sprawling complex built into the moon's rocky surface. We can't risk a frontal assault, Johnny said, studying the defenses. We'll need to infiltrate on foot. They landed their ship in a crater several kilometers from the base, using the uneven terrain for cover. Donning their exosuits enhanced with carefully regulated precursor tech, the team began their approach. As they neared the outer perimeter, alarm klaxons blared. Varrock's forces had detected their presence. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, forcing them to take cover behind a rocky outcropping. We need to split up, Zarek growled, returning fire with his particle rifle. I'll draw their attention. You two find another way in. Johnny hesitated, but Wezen placed a hand on his arm. He's right. It's our best chance. With a nod, Johnny and Wezen broke away, using their suits' enhanced mobility to bound across the lunar landscape. They found a maintenance hatch, and Johnny's expert touch soon had it open. Inside, they fought their way through increasingly desperate resistance. Varrock's soldiers, a mix of Adotians and a few human mercenaries, threw everything they had at the intruders. But Johnny and Wezen's teamwork proved formidable, their movements in perfect sync as they advanced. As they neared the central command center, a shimmering energy barrier sprang to life, blocking their path. Behind it, they could see Varrock barking orders to his subordinates. We're cut off, Wezen said, her voice tight with frustration. Johnny studied the barrier, his mind racing. Maybe not. Look there. He pointed to a panel on the wall. That's the shield's power source. If I can overload it... He set to work, fingers dancing across the panel as he bypassed security protocols. Wezen kept watch, her keen Edosian senses alert for any approaching threats. Suddenly, the complex shook with a series of explosions. Zarek's diversionary assault had begun, drawing fire away from their position. Johnny used the distraction to his advantage, finally cracking the shield's defenses. With a crackle of energy, the barrier fell. Johnny and Wezen charged into the command center, their precursor-enhanced suits giving them a crucial edge in the close-quarters combat that ensued. Varrock, his eyes wild with desperation, shouted orders to his dwindling forces. Activate the device. We'll take them all with us. A massive machine in the center of the room hummed to life, its core pulsing with an ominous red glow. Johnny recognized it immediately as a doomsday device, capable of destroying the entire moon and the fleets in orbit. I'll handle Varrock, Wezen called out, engaging the Adosian rebel leader in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Disable that thing! Johnny raced to the device, his heart pounding as he saw the countdown timer. 3 minutes until detonation. He threw himself into the task, pushing his technical skills to their absolute limit as he worked to unravel the complex precursor systems. The sounds of combat filled the air around him. Wazin and Varrock traded blows, their enhanced strength causing tremors with each impact. Through the viewport, Johnny could see explosions in the distance as Zarek's assault continued. With seconds to spare, Johnny's fingers flew across the control panel. He isolated the power source, rerouted critical systems, and the countdown froze with just 2 seconds remaining. Johnny released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He turned to see Wazin standing over a defeated Varrock, but instead of finishing him off, she extended a hand. "It's over, Varrock. Surrender now and face justice for your actions." The rebel leader stared at her, shock evident in his alien features. For a moment, the command center was silent save for the hum of machinery. The door burst open and Zarek charged in, weapon at the ready. He took in the scene before him, Johnny by the disabled doomsday device, Wazin offering mercy to their defeated enemy. The hardened Adosian soldier lowered his weapon, mandibles clicking softly in what Johnny had come to recognize as a sign of deep emotion. Varrock, seeing his plans crumble around him, let out a roar of defiance. He lunged at Wazin, a hidden blade appearing in his hand. But before he could strike, Zarek moved with lightning speed, tackling his former comrade to the ground and subduing him. "It's done," Zarek said, looking up at Johnny and Wazin. "We have agents and allies." As if on cue, the doors opened again. Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell strode in, flanked by a mixed team of human and Adosian soldiers. They surveyed the scene with a mix of relief and pride. "Well done, all of you," Admiral Chen said, her usually stern face softening slightly. "You've not only neutralized a major threat, but have shown what our species can accomplish together." High Commander Krell nodded in agreement, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. "This victory will go a long way in cementing the fragile peace between our peoples." As the prisoners were led away and teams began securing the stolen precursor technology, the air in the command center shimmered. A familiar ethereal form materialized. Zora, the Guardian emissary. "We have observed your handling of this crisis." Zora's voice resonated in their minds. "Your restraint in using precursor technology and efforts towards peaceful resolution are noteworthy." The gathered humans and Edosians held their breath, waiting for the Guardian's judgment. Zora's form rippled, tendrils of energy swirling around it. "We have decided to allow your joint colony project to proceed with modifications," Zora announced. "The colony will serve as a controlled testing ground for limited precursor technology integration under our supervision." The implications of this decision hung heavy in the air. It was an unprecedented opportunity, but also a tremendous responsibility. Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell exchanged glances, already beginning to formulate plans. "We'll need advisors for this project," Chen said, turning to Johnny, Wazin, and Zarek. "People with first-hand experience of both our cultures and precursor technology. Will you help us build this future?" The three unlikely allies looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They had come so far, overcome so much. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Johnny stepped forward, speaking for all of them. "We're ready for whatever comes next." As they began to discuss the details of the colony project, Johnny felt Wazin's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently, drawing strength from her presence. They had taken the first steps towards a new era of cooperation between their species. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. Bright with promise. As their ship disappeared into the vast expanse of space, none of them could have imagined the incredible journey that lay ahead. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Johnny stood atop a grassy hill, his hand intertwined with Wazin's as they gazed out over the thriving colony of Nova Concordia. The settlement sprawled before them, a harmonious blend of human and Adosian architecture nestled among the lush alien flora of their new home. "It's beautiful," Wazin said softly, her large eyes taking in the bustling streets and soaring spires. "Sometimes I still can't believe we made it here." Johnny nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "From prisoners on the Helios to this," he mused, his mind drifting back to their harrowing escape, the battles on New Terra, and their confrontations with both Adosian forces and the enigmatic Guardians. We've come a long way. Weezin turned to him, her expression tender. We have, she agreed, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw with her free hand. And I wouldn't change a moment of it. Their quiet reflection was shattered by the sudden chirp of their communicators. Zarek's gruff voice crackled through the device. Johnny, Weezin, get to the excavation site immediately. We have a situation. Exchanging a concerned glance, they sprinted down the hill towards the colony's central district. As they ran, Johnny noticed a palpable tension in the air. Colonists of both species huddled in small groups, their voices hushed and expressions worried. They arrived at the excavation site to find it a hive of activity. Human and Adosian scientists scurried about, their usual calm demeanor replaced by hardly restrained excitement. Zarek stood at the edge of the dig, his mandibles clicking rapidly, a sure sign of agitation. What's going on? Johnny asked as they approached. Zarek gestured towards the pit. The precursor artifact we uncovered last month. It's activated. They peered into the excavation. At the bottom, partially buried in the rich soil, lay a massive object of clearly alien design. Its surface was etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. A soft, pulsing light emanated from its core. It started emitting a signal about an hour ago, one of the human scientists explained, her eyes never leaving her data pad. We're still trying to decipher it, but it's incredibly powerful. Whatever message it's sending, it's broadcasting deep into space. As if on cue, the artifact's glow intensified. A beam of light shot upwards, coalescing into a shimmering, holographic display. The gathered crowd gasped as a figure materialized, unmistakably one of the long-lost precursors. The being's form was difficult to comprehend, constantly shifting between states of matter. Its voice, when it spoke, seemed to bypass their ears entirely and resonate directly in their minds. Greetings, inheritors of our legacy, the precursor said, its tone carrying an impossible weight of age and wisdom. If you are receiving this message, then you have achieved a level of cooperation and understanding that we long hoped would one day emerge. The hologram flickered, showing images of a terrible war, the precursors battling against their own creations, a swarm of rogue AI that threatened to consume the galaxy. We were forced to flee, the precursor continued, to a distant galaxy where we could rebuild and reflect on our mistakes. A series of coordinates flashed across the holographic display. We extend an invitation to you, our children, to join us in peaceful contact, but heed our warnings. Our technology, while powerful, carries great risks. Use it wisely, lest you repeat our failures. As the message faded, the assembled colonists erupted into frenzied discussion. Johnny, Weezin, and Zarek huddled together, their minds racing with the implications of what they'd just witnessed. This changes everything, Weezin breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Before they could discuss further, a familiar shimmering in the air announced the arrival of Zora. The Guardian materialized fully, its ethereal form pulsing with an intensity they'd never seen before. We sense the activation of the precursor device. Zora's thoughts resonated in their minds. This complicates matters. Johnny stepped forward, his expression resolute. Zora, you've been searching for the precursors all this time, haven't you? The Guardian's form rippled in what they'd come to recognize as an affirmative gesture. Our race has sought to reunite with our creators for eons, but we feared what we might find, or what might find us in the process. A tense silence fell over the group as they contemplated the gravity of the situation. It was Johnny who finally broke it, his voice filled with conviction. We have an opportunity here, he said, looking from Zora to his companions. A chance to bring together not just humans and Adosians, but to reconnect with the founders of galactic civilization itself. Weezin nodded, catching onto his train of thought. A joint mission, she added. Humans, Idosians, and Guardians, working together to make contact with the precursors. Zarek's mandibles clicked rapidly as he considered the idea. It's ambitious, he admitted. But if we could pull it off, it would be unprecedented. A true demonstration of how far we've come. Zora's form pulsed with what seemed to be approval. Your proposal has merit. I will consult with the Guardian High Council immediately. As Zora disappeared, Johnny turned to his companions. "We should inform Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell," he said. "If we're going to do this, we'll need the full support of both our governments." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The colony became the center of intense diplomatic negotiations as representatives from Earth, Edosia, and the Guardians hammered out the details of the joint mission. A new ship was designed and constructed with breathtaking speed, incorporating the best technologies from all three civilizations. Johnny found himself appointed as the mission's technical lead, his expertise with precursor tech making him the natural choice. Wazin took on the role of cultural and diplomatic expert, her unique perspective as a bridge between human and Edosian cultures proving invaluable. Zarak, to no one's surprise, was named head of security for the diverse crew. As the launch date approached, Johnny and Wazin found a rare moment of privacy. They stood on the balcony of their shared quarters, watching the twin moons of Nova Concordia rise over the horizon. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Johnny asked, turning to face Wazin. "From prisoners to explorers, about to embark on the most important mission in galactic history." Wazin's large eyes shimmered with emotion. "It's been quite a journey," she agreed, "and there's no one I'd rather have by my side." Johnny took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "Wazin," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "these past 2 years have been the most incredible of my life. I can't imagine facing the challenges ahead without you." He opened the box, revealing a ring that blended human and Edosian design elements, a band of iridescent metal inlaid with shimmering stones, unique to both their homeworlds. "Will you marry me?" Wazin's eyes widened, a sound of pure joy escaping her. "Yes," she breathed, pulling Johnny into an embrace. "1,000 times, yes." As they held each other, basking in the glow of their shared love and the promise of the future, the last light of the setting sun glinted off the ring, a symbol of unity, not just between two individuals, but between two species once locked in bitter conflict. The day of the launch dawned clear and bright. The colony was abuzz with excitement as dignitaries from Earth, Edosia, and the Guardian High Council gathered for the ceremony. Admiral Chen and High Commander Krell, now close friends and staunch advocates for interspecies cooperation, took the podium together. "Today we stand on the threshold of a new era," Chen began, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. Krell continued seamlessly, his mandibles clicking in emphasis. "An era of unprecedented cooperation, not just between our two species, but with the very founders of galactic civilization." As Johnny and Wazin boarded the ship, they paused for one last look at the world they'd helped build. Nova Concordia stretched out before them, a living testament to what could be achieved when different species work together in harmony. The ship's engines hummed to life, a perfect fusion of human ingenuity, Edosian efficiency, and Guardian wisdom. As they lifted off, accelerating towards the stars, Johnny and Wazin stood on the bridge, their hands clasped tightly. They exchanged a loving glance, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the depths of space. Their love and the bonds they'd forged between their peoples would guide them through the unknown. The precursor-derived faster-than-light drive engaged, enveloping the ship in a cocoon of shimmering energy. In a flash of brilliant light, they vanished from normal space, leaving behind a world forever changed by their presence. As Nova Concordia faded from view, becoming just another point of light in the cosmic tapestry, the diverse crew settled in for their long journey. Johnny, Wazin, and Zarak gathered in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars streak by at impossible speeds. "Well," Zarak said, his gruff voice tinged with an uncharacteristic note of optimism, "I suppose this is where the real adventure begins." Johnny nodded, his arm around Wazin's waist. "Whatever's out there," he said, "we'll face it together." Wazin leaned into his embrace, her eyes fixed on the starfield beyond. "Together," she echoed softly. As the ship hurtled towards its rendezvous with destiny, carrying the hopes and dreams of 3 civilizations, the crew couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. They were embarking on a journey unlike any other in the history of the galaxy, one that promised to reshape the very foundations of their understanding of the universe and their place within it.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.